Hello and welcome. This class is Foods for Weight Loss, and I am Carol from Interconnected Wellness. I have had the crud and I still have a cough, so I'm recording this class from my home so that I don't get you sick. And we are going to start today with a recipe for Saag, an Indian comfort food. And I will explain why that is important to weight loss later on in our class. But because of the cook time, we are going to get started on it right away. I'm going to get it into the Instant Pot. And then while it is cooking, I will talk to you about different foods that are important for weight loss and why they are important. So to begin today, I have my Instant Pot kettle. And inside I have, the minimum amount of water required for cooking. And I have just put a steamer basket. And into that steamer basket, I'm going to put 3 kinds of greens. Now, Indian Saag is traditionally made with spinach. But spinach can give you kind of a limp and watery result. In the past, I have tried a combination of mustard greens and spinach, which is very delightful, has good body. Today, I am using mustard greens, spinach, and collard greens. The result is a product with a lot of body to it and quite a good flavor, not too sulfury, which you would expect with the mustard greens. So I have already prepared my mustard greens. I've taken the stem off and I've just roughly chopped them into small pieces just so that they will all fit into the Instant Pot. So I'm going to dump that in the Instant Pot along with a full container of spinach. So this is really 3 bunches of greens and it cooks down to an amazing small amount. So it's very concentrated, very dense. So that whole thing goes in. And then on the collard greens, I'm just going to demonstrate how to take the stem out. If you leave the stem in, your finished dish will be quite fibrous. Will have strands in it like celery strands. And so with both the mustard and the collard, I fold my leaf in half. And at this point, you can set it on the cutting board and just trim right down that spine. Or I just actually rip that stem out, just like that, right from the leaf. So I do that with all the leaves, folding it in half and just taking out that heavy stalk. Don't worry about down near the end of the leaf because it's quite thin there. I am going to turn my screen down so that you can see my cutting board. There we go. And so, again, this is just a rough chop. We're going to put it in the blender anyway, so it doesn't matter if the reason for the chopping is just so that it will all fit in the Instant Pot. Then on top of that, now I'm going to add the good stuff that gives it the flavor. I have in my skillet here some onion that I have caramelized. You don't have to caramelize your onion. You can put it in raw, but the flavor will be better if you saute the onion in oil until it browns nicely. You can do that first. And then stick those onions in right on top of those greens. Okay, we're going to add 3 more things. We're going to add some garlic, cloves. There's 2. And I'm going to put in another couple. And then some cumin and some coriander, a teaspoon of each. And just going to dump that right on top of the greens. Okay. Now that that's ready to cook, I'm going to put it in the Instant Pot and pressure it for about 8 minutes. Now, greens normally don't take very long to, they'll cook down in 2 or 3 minutes. But I want, the collard is quite tough, and I want it to be completely softened so that it will puree nicely. What we're basically making is creamed spinach. You may have heard of Saag aloo, which is saag with potatoes, spinach, creamed spinach and potatoes, or Saag paneer, which is creamed spinach with cheese. Today I'm making just plain saag. So that is going into the cooker now. All right, while that cooks, let me share my screen and we will get into what foods are important for weight loss and why. Okay, you are seeing my screen now. We have a conception in our country that weight loss means dieting and dieting means deprivation. But what I'm going to share with you today is that we need more, not less, for weight loss. Are we resigned to just salads and calorie counting when we want to lose weight? My answer is a solid no, that deprivation doesn't get us anywhere, and that weight loss requires more nutrient density, not less. Let me explain what I mean. You might think you're in charge of your weight. You might think that by burning more calories, you're going to control your weight. That might work in the early years. But if that were all that successful, we wouldn't have the drastic rise in obesity that we are experiencing in this country. If everybody could just exercise and get it off, then it would be working and we wouldn't have a problem. I'm here to say that your weight is controlled hundreds of times more by the hormones in your body than by the exercise you are doing. Exercise has its benefits, and one of those benefits is that it helps balance some of these hormones. But it's the hormones that really determine whether you're storing your weight or losing your weight. And there are certain foods that support balance in these hormones. If these hormones are out of balance, then your weight is going to be out of balance. And if these hormones are balanced, then your weight will be balanced. Okay, so let's talk about insulin to begin with. Now, you maybe recognize the second graphic here, where blood sugar drops below the orange line, and all of a sudden you're in a crisis. You need something to eat now. You can't think. Your brain fog, irritability, shakiness, all kinds of symptoms. And we laugh about it and call it hangry. That is actually, as prevalent a pattern as it is actually not a normal pattern. It's actually a dysfunctional pattern. Blood sugar should be like the upper picture, where even though there's a rhythm, a modulation, an up and down wave to it, it never gets above the green line or below the orange line. And the problem with our diets today is that they're so high in refined carbohydrates that they send our insulin skyrocketing. Now, insulin's not the enemy. It's doing its job like it's supposed to. It's protecting our organs from high blood sugars. And so it is stowing all those sugars away. But the problem is it does its job so well that there is an equal drop according to the rise. The higher the rise, the lower the drop. And so the key here to not becoming hangry, when you're hangry, the diet's out the window. You're not going to lose weight when you're hangry because your brain is commanding you to eat that Snickers bar now. And you think you just don't have enough self-discipline. This isn't about discipline at all. This is about hormones. And if you balance the hormones, the cravings go away, and then you're not reaching for those detrimental foods. So what we need for insulin is actually, whoops, went too far, is actually natural fats to modulate that blood sugar surge. So when I say natural fats, I'm not talking about any kind of processed vegetable oil. I'm talking about nuts and seeds and olives and coconut, whole, real foods made in nature without an ingredient label that help us keep us from having an insulin spike, keep that insulin from getting too high. And so if your weight loss issues focus around this idea of hypoglycemic episodes, if you fall into hangry, then front loading your meals with fats is going to be very beneficial so that you don't crash. It's like building a fire with logs instead of with kindling. Because if you build with kindling, your body will eat anything in sight practically to reignite that fire when it gets so low. But if you fuel with the logs, if you fuel with the fats, you're not going to drop, you're not going to burn out, and then you're not going to fight the cravings. And so here are some examples. When I say raw nuts and butters, I'm not talking about peanut butter. I'm talking about cashew butter, hazelnut butter, almond butter, macadamia butter. And when I'm talking about raw seeds and seed butters, I include sunflower seed butter and sesame seed butter, which is also known as tahini. There's some other things here, hummus, coconut products. here is a granola that is made strictly with nuts and seeds, no grains. And grains have their place. I'm not anti-grain. But for insulin balancing, the ratio of the carbohydrates and fats has to change. There has to be a reduction in refined carbohydrates and an increase in natural fats. So here is a recipe for you using a natural fat. And, I'm going to stop share for just a minute. We'll come back to the recipe, but I'm going to show you how it's made. Okay, here I am. I'm back. Okay. In my little blender jar here, I have already put a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, a tablespoon of honey, a half a teaspoon of salt, and 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. And now I am going to add my tahini. This is just ground up sesame seeds. This is actually an excellent source of calcium. If you have not used this before, it will separate. So just make sure that you shake it well or stir it well before you use the product. And I am putting in 1/3 cup of this tahini. It's quite runny, as you can see. Okay, and then I'm also going to put in 1/3 cup, same amount of olive oil. And I'm going to blend that all together. I'm actually going to start blending and then I'm going to pour the olive oil in. And it should make a smooth dressing. Okay. I think I'm going to mute for just a second while I run the blender so that the noise doesn't overwhelm the speakers here. Okay, now the product at this point looks quite thick and clumpy. So the key to making a creamy dressing is pour in the olive oil. That was just the tahini and the garlic and the honey and the lemon. Excuse my cough. That's why I'm not with you in person. Okay, so I'm going to blend it again. And then if it's not creamy enough, the trick here is to just add 1 or 2 tablespoons of cold water. That will smooth it out and make it very smooth. So then I think I will mute. Okay. There it is. As predicted, it looks a little bit clumpy. And so that's where the tip of add 1 to 2 tablespoons of cold water come in to make it perfectly creamy. Now, this is really good on raw vegetable sticks, carrots, celery, bell peppers, cauliflower, broccoli. You can add fresh herbs to it. I have here some dill that I think I will chop up and put in. And I think it would be delightful on beet chips. So there you go. There's a snack that supports weight loss that you can have, either front load before you hit that crisis, or when you are hangry, eat some vegetables, not plain because they're going to leave you hangry, but with a natural fat like this tahini dressing. And it will stoke your fire so you're not hangry anymore. And you also will then ignite your logs for a long, slow burn to keep your insulin balanced and normalized. Okay, I'm going to go back to a screen share. Let me move some of my dishes out of the way. And let's go on with our presentation about other foods that might help with weight loss. Okay, here is the recipe for the tahini dressing. There will be a handout available on the website, so you don't have to take notes from this recording. You'll be able to just download the handout, and this does not have the note about the water, but I will make sure that the final draft has that added. Okay, there we go. Here is another recipe that I'm not going to demonstrate today that does include a lot of nuts and seeds. Now, I'm not saying that for weight loss, you should go eat 2 cups of nuts a day. But I am saying if you're fighting cravings, particularly sugar cravings, and you're wanting the chips, cakes, cookies, candies, candy bars, chocolate, perhaps stave your cravings with maybe 1/4 cup of granola instead for balanced insulin response, because hormones control weight loss. And if your insulin is high, you cannot lose weight. If insulin is high, it is directing your body to store on purpose. And so if you want to lose, then you cannot have high insulin. And so fats help moderate insulin so that you get a lower response. Okay. Now, second hormone was estrogen. And there's a lot of reason why estrogen contributes to weight gain. High estrogen, or estrogen that's out of balance with progesterone, what we call an estrogen dominance, just because the ratio is off. One of the reasons is water retention. There's this quote here. So estrogen balance is going to help weight loss. Lowering estrogen will help increase weight loss. It will increase or decrease water retention. Dr. Sarah Godfrey recommends a pound of vegetables per day just for the fiber, because the fiber helps you get rid of the spent estrogen so it doesn't keep recirculating in your body. But beyond just the pound of vegetables a day, which is an excellent guideline, but beyond vegetables in general, I would say focus on cruciferous vegetables. The cruciferous specifically help the liver pathway that deconjugates the estrogen so that your body can get rid of it. If your liver detox pathway is impaired, that estrogen is going to recirculate. You're going to be estrogen dominant. So cruciferous vegetables goes way beyond broccoli. Who knew? Did you know there were so many cruciferous vegetables, not just broccoli and cauliflower? Okay, here comes another cough. Excuse me. Arugula, did you know arugula was a cruciferous vegetable? Some of these I bet you've never even heard of. Do you know what kohlrabi is? Oh my goodness. And radishes are cruciferous? What fun. And so my challenge is to eat 1 or 2 cups of cruciferous vegetables a day. Wow, how do you do that? That doesn't just mean 1 or 2 radishes on a salad. That means roasting the whole bunch of radishes in the oven with oil and salt and eating them as a side dish. That means grating kohlrabi into and making slaw out of it. That means chopping turnips with apples to make apple salad. Lots and lots of things you can do with cruciferous vegetables. Here's a recipe that I am sharing because it's so easy and it makes cruciferous vegetables taste so good. You may not like broccoli or cauliflower, especially not Brussels sprouts. Heaven forbid that we eat Brussels sprouts, right? But because of their sulfury flavor, the mustard actually is wonderful on them. And just complementing that mustard flavor with just a little bit of sweet, the pungent with the sweet. You can make just about any cruciferous taste good. Let me stop share for a minute here. Okay, so it's so simple. Equal parts Dijon mustard and pure maple syrup, unsweetened maple syrup. That's all it is. Just mix them together. A tablespoon of each, 1/4 cup of each, 1/2 cup of each, depends on how many you're feeding. We, especially in my home, like it on Brussels sprouts. And it's actually really good on chicken too. And chicken's not a cruciferous vegetable. Have you ever had rutabaga? Not sure that I have my rutabaga within reach. But rutabaga, hold, let me grab it. Thank you for your patience. All right. That is a rutabaga. Kind of like a turnip, only more yellow with some purple on top. These can be cut into strips like French fries and baked and then dipped in the magic sauce. So if you have estrogen dominance, your estrogen is high, lots of cruciferous vegetables, and use that magic sauce to make it palatable. Well, I've got me here without my screen share where you've got me in person. This is that granola. No oats, just all kinds of seeds, pumpkin seeds and sesame seeds and nuts, pecans and almonds, and some cashews and some chia seeds and some sesame seeds. It doesn't matter, whatever you have on hand, whichever nuts and seeds you like. Smaller seeds, maybe use a couple of tablespoons. Bigger ones, bigger nuts and so forth, a cup or so. But the idea is you just mix them all together until you have about 3 cups. And then you coat them with coconut and honey and bake them. Okay, so we've covered what you need to balance your insulin and what you need to balance your estrogen. What about the other hormones? Okay, thyroid hormone. Hypothyroidism is an epidemic today. It seems like every third woman is walking around on Synthroid because she has low thyroid. Is it because God made defective bodies? No, but our thyroids are very susceptible to nutrient deficiencies. They're very susceptible also to stress. And so in our world today, we've got a combination of high stress and low nutrient sufficiency. Oh, we eat lots of calories, but we don't eat lots of minerals. We don't eat lots of proteins. That's what the thyroid needs. Excuse me, is lots of minerals and lots of proteins. I better grab a drink. Excuse me. Okay. These are 6 of the nutrients that the thyroid is very dependent on. The minerals that it needs are iodine, selenium, iron, and zinc. It also needs lots of protein, and it also needs vitamin A. For my presentation today, I thought I would focus on an easy way to get the iodine and the selenium into our diet, because they are not naturally occurring in the typical American diet. So, coming back to me now. Okay. So Brazil nuts are the great big ones that everybody picks out of the nut mix because they don't like them. But when you roast them, it improves their flavor, and salt them a little bit. They're very delicious. And it only takes 3 to 5 Brazil nuts a day to meet your requirement for selenium for your thyroid function. And so, as everybody knows, if you have a sluggish thyroid, you have a sluggish metabolism, you can't lose weight, okay? You have to have an smooth running, optimally functioning thyroid to have a good enough metabolism to shed your extra pounds. And maybe what you need is a little selenium. And so this recipe, what I've done is I just took the raw Brazil nut. That's the way they come. They almost always come raw. You don't really get roasted Brazil nuts, but so I grabbed some raw ones. I put them in a Ziploc bag with a little bit of avocado oil, shook it up so they were all coated. And then instead of using an iodized salt, which is actually stripped of micronutrients, I'm using a whole salt, something like a Himalayan salt. This is real salt that's not been refined. It has all the micronutrients in it. And then I am adding kelp flakes to it. Now, as we know, kelp is a seaweed. It's very high in iodine. What they do is they just dry it and break it into little flakes. And so I sprinkle on half and half salt, half kelp flakes onto the Brazil nuts, roast them in the oven, and they come out very appealing. A little tip for you, if you don't want to be eating Brazil nuts every day, like I say, it only takes 3 to 5 per day, but a little tip is to mix your kelp and your salt 50-50 for all of your cooking, all of your seasoning needs. That way you will get the iodine you need. But those are just 2 nutrients that support thyroid hormone balance for weight loss. the selenium, and the iodine. Okay, I'm going to go back to a screen share. So there is that recipe there as far as quantities of ingredients. And again, you'll be able to just print out the handout. You won't have to take notes from this recording. And there you have it. Bake time is about 20 minutes. Okay, the last hormone that we're going to talk about today is cortisol. And the way that we manage our cortisol isn't eating so much. It's not food so much as it's stress management. We can't avoid stress, but it is remediating our stress every day by having routines, deep breathing at meal times, expressing gratitude in the evening, stretching and grounding in the morning, practicing good sleep hygiene. But there is one nutrient that we can't seem to relax without it. And we do need to relax in order to have balanced cortisol. And that nutrient is magnesium. And where do we find magnesium? Dark leafy greens. And that is where our Saag comes in. And I know it is done pressure cooking. So I'm going to let you look at the recipe while I vent the Instant Pot and proceed with how to finish that recipe. Okay, so the part I'm going to show you is how to blend it and what the finished product looks like. Okay, so one of the things about Indian cooking is that to finish their meal, they make what they call a tadka, which is roasted seeds in oil. Because the components of the seeds, the flavor components, are usually fat soluble. And so if we just put it in a water-based recipe, the flavor doesn't come out, it's not pronounced. And so to make our tadka, I'm just using cumin seeds, which is the same seed that's used in chili, right? Chili, cumin is the primary seasoning for chili. So I've got some oil preheating in a skillet on the stove, just a tablespoon of oil or so, just enough to wet the seeds. And when the oil is warm enough that it starts to ripple, I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of these seeds, and they will sizzle and sputter and splatter. And in about 30 seconds, they'll be browned and toasted and ready to add to my recipe. So let me grab my skillet. This is the same skillet that I caramelized the onion in. And you're not going to be able to see that without me dumping the seeds on the counter. My oil's not quite hot enough. I'm going to put it back on the stove, and I am going to bring over my greens, which at this point should be finished. the Instant Pot is still venting, so I'm going to make another comment about Saag while I'm waiting for the pressure to come down. Saag is traditionally made with ghee, which is a clarified butter. When you melt your butter, you have little milk solids in it. If you strain that off, you've just got the fat without any of the milk solids. That is ghee. Because many people in our world today are dairy intolerant, I have adapted my recipe to use coconut milk instead of ghee. You can still make it with ghee. But in finishing this recipe, what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend everything that was in the Instant Pot, the onion, the garlic, the ginger, the coriander, the cumin, and the greens. I'm going to blend that with a little coconut milk. And then I will add in the tadka, and it will be delightful. Okay, so here we go. Okay, because it's so hot, it's a little tricky. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm not sure if I can show you how much that condensed. When I put those 3 bunches of greens in the Instant Pot, it was up to the top. And I don't know if you can see how far they have cooked down. Obviously, quite a ways. It just barely fills the steamer basket now. If you have time to wait until it all cools, it's a little easier. Because then you can lift the whole steamer basket out and dump it directly into the blender without losing your spices. Okay. So I've got my greens in there. I am using a full fat coconut milk. Again, fats are your friends. Don't be afraid of fats. Just make sure they're not man-made fats. Just make sure that they are a single ingredient and not ultra refined, ultra processed. Okay, so I'm adding a 1/2 cup of coconut milk. And then I'm just going to puree it until it's a nice creamed product. And let me tell you, this is comfort food. It really is. Okay, I'll mute while I run the blender. My apologies that I cannot share this tasting table with you. I would love for you to taste these recipes. You know, we can't help nature, and I am sorry that I got laryngitis and had a cough. And anyway, I guess I'm going to eat all the leftovers. You'll just have to try it for yourself. Okay, I think we're about out of time. I have just a couple things that I want to share still. Okay, those are the hormones. Insulin, and there's more we can do, but primarily we support insulin with fats. We support estrogen with cruciferous vegetables. We support thyroid with minerals and proteins, particularly iodine and selenium. And we support cortisol with magnesium. Now, the beautiful thing about these greens, they're cruciferous. They have healthy fats. They contain magnesium. You know, they're not just for the magnesium for the cortisol. They also support estrogen balance. They also support insulin balance, and they support the liver too. And that's the last thing I wanted to share with you today is not only our hormones, but our liver contributes to whether we hold on to our weight or whether we can shed our weight. Here's why. When you start losing weight, you start shedding stored fat, right? Well, the fat tissue is where your body will stow toxins to keep them from damaging organs. So the body will put toxins in fat on purpose if it can't get rid of them. Now, if you're starting to release those toxins, your liver better be operating at its very best to handle all of that and detoxify it and get it out of the body so it doesn't recirculate it. But for each of us, the liver is a primary target in today's world. It gets bogged down with all of the environmental and situational cultural things that we do to it. A lot of stress, a lot of processed food, a lot of pesticides, a lot of just junk food, prescriptions, so forth, are already taking up those detox pathways in the liver. And so if the liver cannot detoxify what's being released, those toxins will recirculate and the body will say, well, this is not working. I cannot let go of this fat. It's dangerous. I can't get rid of these toxins. I just have to hold on to the fat. So the body will stop releasing fat stores if the liver is not well supported. So one of the primary things for weight loss is you have to support the liver. Leafy greens do that because some of them are bitter herbs and some of them are cruciferous vegetables, which both support the liver. So foods for liver include cruciferous vegetables and also bitter herbs. And here are some bitter herbs: arugula, which I could have put in this Saag, I didn't. Artichoke, burdock, caraway, I'm not going to read them all, dandelion, milk thistle, parsley, romaine, watercress. Anyway, the herbs help the liver do its job of detoxifying toxins so that you can get rid of your fat stores. Without that support, the body will not release the fat. So if you feel like you are sluggish in that way, or maybe if you're on a lot of medications, maybe if you've been exposed to a lot of toxins, that may be the hang up to your weight loss, and that these may be the foods that you need to help you lose weight. And so that Saag is a beautiful recipe for liver support as well. But our recipe for liver support, our food that I am sharing today, is just simply a tea that you can drink throughout your day, put in your water bottle. And let me see. Yep. Okay. let me stop share and show my products here. What I'm using is 3 different teas. Chamomile, it doesn't have to be this brand. This is a brand I'm partial to because they're very pure and I like just their single ingredient. They have a very good flavor. So in this recipe, I'm using 2 bags of chamomile tea. I'm also using a ginger tea. You can get ginger tea in different brands. I like this one. It's not too strong. Sometimes ginger tea can be a little bit strong. So I'm using 1 bag of this. And these are both bitter herbs, sorry. Chamomile and ginger are both bitter herbs. The third one I'm using is burdock, which is a amazing bitter herb that's known as a blood purifier. You don't have to use burdock. Burdock is difficult to find in the grocery stores. If you can't find it, you can use dandelion instead. But dandelion is stronger, a little harder to palate, not as tasty. Burdock is more palatable. You can order it off of Amazon if you can't find it locally. And so for this recipe, all I did was 2 bags of chamomile, 1 bag of ginger, and 1 bag of burdock. I put them in my jar and then poured a quart of boiling water over the bags. And I have had it steeping here for 10 minutes or more. And then after it's done steeping, I can remove the tea bags and pour it into my water bottle. It's very tonic for the liver, very supportive for the liver, and will help in weight loss in that respect. So as you increase your hydration in order to lose weight, you might consider drinking some herbal teas, especially a bitter herb tonic combination such as this, as a way to not only support your hydration, but to support your liver. So thank you very much for joining our class today. If you have questions, you can contact me directly at 208-244-4175. That is my cell number. Or you can email me, Carol, at inner, I-N-N-E-R, Connected Wellness. Thank you and have a great day, and look for that handout with your recipes on it.